And when I say that this will make a good, I don't even want to say this will make a suitable substitute for vanilla. This will make a, passable custard. This will make a reasonable substitute. This, having tasted it several times now, is as good as any custard I've ever made. I cannot tell you how happy I am. Hi guys, so as those of you who've been following me for a little while will know, one of the conundrums in my head was a vanilla substitute for September. For those of you new to my channel, in September I'm going to be eating only things that I can be self-sufficient in, things that I can grow myself, harvest myself, forage myself, or whatever it might be. And that goes right down to the salt and pepper in my food. There'll be nothing going in my mouth that's been bought in a shop through the whole of September. So if you're interested in following that, make sure you're subscribed. But today what we're doing is we're harvesting some of this plant behind me from a roadside. And we're doing that to use it as a vanilla replacement. Now, it's not a like-for-like vanilla replacement. Of course it isn't, otherwise we wouldn't be using vanilla. But it does serve the same purpose. So we're going to be making custard today using Meadowsweet, which is this plant here, as our flavouring. Now, I've done other videos with the identification features of Meadowsweet in, and I'll link to them in the description. But for now, let me just say it grows in absolute abundance all over the UK. I'm not sure on its proliferation outside the UK, but I'll have a bit of research done by the time I do the filming in the kitchen, and I'll let you know whereabouts in the world you might be able to find it. But we're going to be harvesting some of these flowers, and we're going to be using them to infuse our custard that we're going to be using through September. So we're going to take some home today and go and make some custard. So I've collected a bag of Meadowsweet, and we're going to take that home now and infuse it in our milk, ready to make custard with. Now, you can use Meadowsweet for all sorts of things, and you can basically use it for all the things that you'd use elderflower for. You can make champagne with it, or like I say, pretty much anything you can use elderflower for, you can use Meadowsweet for. Now, another thing to just think of, with it being midsummer, it's not just, I'm just going to collect a few more while we talk. It's not just the flowers that are out in full force. There's also lots of bugs, and you're going to find quite a lot of aphids and things in amongst your Meadowsweet. So I try to debug them as I pick them. I try and pick the ones that are less buggy and just give them a little bit of a shake, and usually most of the bugs will fall off. Okay, we're back in the kitchen. So these are our ingredients for our custard. Now, I'm going to use sugar. In September, I'll be using honey, obviously. But what I'm doing at the moment is I really want to get a feel, because I've never done this before, of just how good a vanilla replacement this Meadowsweet will be. So I'm going with more traditional ingredients, more traditional flavours, so that the addition of honey instead of sugar doesn't sort of flavour how I feel about the flavour, if that makes sense, because honey, I think, is going to give a little bit of extra flavour than the sugar would. So I don't want the Meadowsweet to have that advantage. We're going to try it with a really traditional recipe and see where we go. So we've got in here about 300 millilitres of our goat's milk. Now, I've recently got my cream separator. I've used it once. It's still something I'm getting to grips with. And this was what we separated out. Now, it's definitely thicker than our goat's milk, but it's not quite just cream yet. So I need to play around with the settings on the machine. So I'm going to suggest this is the equivalent of half and half milk and cream. So we've got 300 millilitres of that. And if you wanted to replicate this, I would suggest you do 150 ml of cream, 150 ml of milk. We've got 70 grams of sugar. We've got 2 egg yolks. We've got our Meadowsweet, and we've got in here 2 level tablespoons of corn flour, just diluted with a little bit of water. Now, when it comes to Meadowsweet, this is compacted down a little bit on the trip home, but I'm going to suggest that's a really good handful, a really good handful. And we're going to get all of that in the pot. Now, when it comes to bugs, what I've done, or what I find really useful actually with Meadowsweet, is it helps to keep them in an open container on the way home. Most of the aphids and stuff will disappear. And then when you get home, spread it out a little bit on your worktop. And again, most of the aphids will crawl out, and you can pick them out. Really, really simple. I'm fairly sure this is now basically bug-free. So the first thing I'm going to do is basically mix all of the ingredients together except for the corn flour. So in goes the milk/cream, 300 mils, our 70 grams of sugar, and our 2 egg yolks. When I said all the ingredients except for the corn flour, I meant except for the Meadowsweet as well. And then that's going to go straight in our pan. In goes the Meadowsweet next. And we'll give that a good stir to make sure that the Meadowsweet is all covered in the milk. There we go. Now we're going to add some heat to that, and we don't want it to boil. We want to bring it just under a simmer, and then we'll turn the heat off again. So you see that's now got some steam coming off it, and if I leave it, it'll start bubbling. That's about where we want to get it. Any hotter and you run the risk of it splitting. So we'll turn the heat off now. All we're going to do now is we're going to pop the lid on that and let that steep for 15 minutes or so, and then that'll be the first time we give it a taste test. Okay, that's had about 12 minutes. So let's give it a taste test and see how we're doing. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. When I say I'm pleasantly surprised, that doesn't do close to justice. That's amazing. Oh my goodness, I'm so happy. Oh, that's amazing. That's every bit as good as a regular custard with vanilla. Every bit as good. Oh my goodness, I'm so happy. And that's really strong as well. We don't need any more than that. Flavors are very similar to vanilla. Yeah, it's very, very difficult to describe it any other way. It's like vanilla. That's amazing. So we definitely don't need it to steep any longer. So we're going to run it. Wow, I can't get over how good that is. We're going to run it through a sieve now into the pot. Fantastic news. And of course this will go straight to our animals, who will eat it gladly. So all we're going to do now is return it to the pot, bring it back up to a similar temperature, and we're going to add our flour to thicken it. And that's it done. And I think, honestly, because I only steeped that for 10 to 12 minutes, and I think I could have made more with that same amount of Meadowsweet. That's so strong, you know, beautifully strong. And like I said, I only steeped it for a few minutes. I think if I'd left it steeping for a little bit longer, I could easily have made a bigger batch. Now, as I always say, it's worth bearing in mind whenever you're using corn flour to thicken, or any flour to thicken, once you've got it up to temperature, you need to keep it there for a good 5 to 10 minutes. I always go for 10 minutes minimum, because otherwise what can happen is you can get that grainy, floury flavour and taste and texture in the finished product, but you actually need it to be up there long enough to cook the flour. That's what takes that flavour away. So that's thickened up nicely now, and I've just reduced the heat, and I'm going to keep stirring and keep it there for about 10 minutes. So this really does solve a problem. This is a perfect vanilla substitute. I'm so happy with it, and I'll be able to use it in ice creams, in yogurts, across the board. I'm absolutely thrilled. So I'll have to go out and harvest a good dose of it and make some of these up and have them in the freezer ready for September, because in September Meadowsweet won't be available for me to forage for. So I'm just really made up. And when I say that this will make a good, I don't even want to say this will make a suitable substitute for vanilla. This will make a, you know, passable custard. This will make a reasonable substitute. This, having tasted it several times now, is as good as any custard I've ever made. I cannot tell you how happy I am. So there we go, Meadowsweet custard, and I'm just thrilled. I cannot tell you how happy I am. I went in expecting it to make a passable substitute, and I've come out with, I think, something I prefer. This is at least as good as any custard I've ever tried, and I can't wait to share it with my family later this evening. I'm just so happy. So there you go. Thanks ever so much for watching. If you've liked this video, please do press that like button. Also, make sure you're subscribed to my channel. Leave me a comment down below and get out there and get foraging. There's an amazing abundance out there in the hedgerows just waiting for you. Before I wrap this video up, actually, I've got a really quick announcement for those of you who subscribe and follow me. It's just to say that this weekend's live. I have a foraging course on Sunday that I'm leading down in Devon. So it will be Saturday at noon will be this week's YouTube live stream. I almost forgot, I promised to tell you where it grows. So it's native to all of Europe and Western Asia, but it's also found its way and naturalized elsewhere in the world. It's found all over North America and other places. So if you're not on that list of places I've mentioned, you'll have to check for yourself. But it's a widespread plant around the globe. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll speak to you soon. Cheers.